Hello and welcome to the Houston District Photographic Society Monoprint of the Year 2020. We welcome our judge for this competition, Marilyn Stewart, and our Master of Ceremonies, Phil Wiseman.
Okay, so we'll start with begonia.
Yeah, it's out. Okay, so it's an interesting thing, isn't it? That I know that these are certainly a pale green and a brighter green, or a purpley pinky colour and a green. And so because it's reduced to monochrome, we are looking at textures and lines and not the colours that would sort of stand out. And so I've got these like S shape. It's the top of the S is from one of the leaves and the bottom of the S is from the other leaf, right? That sort of just takes you from one leaf to the other. And just at the, I'm looking around the edges again, as I often do, on the left-hand side, it looks like an inch of the way down, but just a little bit way down. There's a tiny bit of white just sticking out at the edge, and again a little bit below that whiter area there. I might have just sort of tweaked that off. I quite understand that on the leaves there might be one or two little spots that were dust spots that were on the leaf when it was taken. But I am enjoying the texture and that sort of S shape that is within that picture. Next.
Below the Spinnaker Tower.
Yeah, so obviously at some height in order to take the shape below. And I say shape because that's what I see it as. You've got the lines. It looks like a running track. It's not. I would think not anyway. But it does look as though someone might be sort of doing a 400-meter relay or something. Around it, waiting for the baton. Just my imagination. I like the fact that the 5 awnings are complete, especially the one at the bottom. You've not been tempted to crop that off, and that the bottom has got a good solid sort of straight line for its edge. The right at the top left-hand corner, almost that barrier is coming out of a corner, not quite, because there's just a little bit of a roof of the central part of the building getting in the way. But you can sort of take a little bit of time with this image and look at all the different tables, how many people are sitting there, what are they doing, are they engaged in different things. But I see this as quite of a pattern picture, that you've got those lines, you've seen the shapes, and that definitely is the thing that comes over with this image. Next.
Canary Wharf.
My word, it's looking up, isn't it? And you must have been pretty close to the building. Now, it could be that there's lots of people getting in the way, and so the only way to get this is to do that, you know, and really come in close. Do you know, I would love to have just shuffled over a little bit to the right, so that bottom left-hand corner, and then possibly the bottom right-hand corner, one of the stronger lines would have been coming absolutely out of a corner. Yeah, if you cut a bit off the left and add a bit to the right, they would have been sort of matched to a corner perfectly. And you don't have to take it like that, but you can always crop it like that. I do like corners coming out of lines rather coming out of corners. I don't know what it is, but my husband says if there's anything I'm picky about, it's lines and corners, and whatever's at the top, it maybe it's the cleaners for the windows, but it almost looks as though it's Japanese writing there. If it's in Canary Wharf, it's not going to be. But yeah, I think you've got quite an unusual angle and I can almost feel curvature on the right hand side for being such an unusual angle for the image. Next.
Cara.
Yeah. She's really happy and very content that you're taking her pictures. Maybe your grandparents or aunts and uncles or mums and dads, whatever. I don't know, but she certainly does feel very, very content and happy to have a photograph taken. We've got a little bit of shine in the eyes. I like the way the top of the hair has been caught in the sunlight. Whatever's catching the background, we've got quite a few speckles of white area, or should we say grey. They've been toned down that do get in the way just a tiny little bit, which is a little bit jarring, but because they're out of focus, we can sort of forgive that. Do like the texture on the coat that we've got on where the sun is shining on her right and her left. And like I say, I think hair detail and that look is a very a good contentment within the image. Next.
Footsteps in the sand.
Yes, this is where you can get the image but not have to do the walk, because the picture is the people in front of you. The sand does slip quite easily, as I think you can see at the beginning of this dark line on the right hand side. So you've got one or two sort of slippages. I'm pointing with my mouse, but you can't see that. But I think you know where I mean. It's just here, these slippages out of the black. That's really sort of takes it into that darker area. So that dark area isn't totally dark. I also like the texture that is towards the left-hand side of the image. And I think probably it would have been all one shade anyway, maybe bright blue and sort of brown for the sand, but it does lend itself to monochrome treatment quite well here, I think, because of the texture and that the sun has created a lot of the texture and the shading for you. Hold that one back, please.
Chile.
Yeah, again, she does look as though she's very content to have her photograph taken. The one thing I've always been told about is do be careful if you include a hand in a portrait. But from what I can see on the hand, the extremely long nails, right, the varnish nails, the rings, the bracelet, and if I'm right, a tattoo on the inside of her wrist, that's all part of her character and needed to be shown, right? So she's looking very slightly up, which can make the eyes look a little bit bigger. So that it does work well for a female portrait. We've got just under her right temple, there is just a little bit of what looks to be solid black in the hair. And again, I don't know if I'd have seen it at a print, it would have been different. But I do like the shine on the hair, and she's looking sort of quite content within the image. And I don't mind the dead space, the empty space on the left-hand side of the image either. Next.
Just another 20,000 to go.
Yes. Do you know, it's crazy, isn't it? We can only see part of this ship, and I don't. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deep at the moment. However many wide potentially that, and how much does it hold, and what is going around the world, possibly that doesn't need to be, is absolutely stunning. And then we've got the rigging, for want of a better word, of how the crane carries that on. I know you can sort of hire half a load as well, so you can have if you only want to transport something, you can just have half of the crate. I can't remember the word for it now. Container. Thank you very much. I usually have my husband do that, but we're not in a building together. The the rigging has got some wonderful lighting cutting across it, so that it's like plaited. This second one in does look plaited. Here, just that one there does look as though it's got a plait effect, but that's purely because of the way the lighting is reaching that part. And I think it's from the pillar on its left has got some perhaps steps for whoever to get up and do their job. The blacks in the image are really strong. The whites in the image, and as a consequence, it doesn't come over as punchy. And I can see it looking quite stunning in print form. And of course, that is what I'm looking at today. So I'll be holding that one back, please.
Leaves against glass.
There was somebody from was in North Norfolk or something, who did a panel of pictures for his fellowship with sort of scenes through a polytunnel, and they were leaves as well that were looked at through plastic. These leaves have had some form of treatment done to them, so that they are not quite what they were to begin with. I don't think it's really come over for me as an image. I've got, starting at the top left-hand corner, I find that white area just a little bit jarring. I think because it's towards an edge and a bit bright. The top of the right-hand edge has got like a thin whiter line on it. And perhaps all the way around has got a thin white line, so maybe that was intentional. And then there is just here, this line I find is quite jarring. You know, it does get in the way for me. And I wished it wasn't there. And in that area, that it's a little bit grainy. Now, I know that the man who did his fellowship wanted that effect. And so this may work well as a panel, maybe 3 or 4, so that we get a little bit more feeling. But it doesn't come over as crisp and clean as some of the others. And leaves against glass, the title. So I think we have got that element of glass in between us, which is perhaps giving us this graininess. And maybe, I've got it. That's it. What that line at the bottom is a crack in the glass. Yeah. But it is difficult to see. So I'll still go with my first sort of instinct, because I can see another line where it might be just a little bit. Yeah, so maybe I'm looking. Yes, I can. Yeah, I've got other. Just to point them out, I will just use my little pen again. I think there's a line here as well, and then there's a line here that all joins up with the lines that I mentioned earlier. It did take some working out though, but as a single image, I don't think it's as strong as some of the others tonight. I do quite like the texture. The whitest leaf on the right hand side does have an interesting silvery quality, and I am enjoying that particular leaf. Next.
Little brown jug.
Yes, and indeed, well, it's glass as well. We often think of a little brown jug as ceramic, but yeah, the background sort of bleeds in through the glass, and then it's almost like a plug, but we've got that repetition going around, like the fact you've vignetted the edges just a little bit, you've sepia toned it to make it a little bit different, and the shine on the lip of the jug does come over very well. Next.
Lurgashall Mill.
This very much reminds me of maybe a National Trust property or something like this. And and as a consequence, I think it's good that we have the two people there who perhaps enjoyed their day out for a walk and then seen the property. That I can see there's some real dark areas in the image and there's some real bright areas in the image. So often a good monochrome print will need a little bit of both to be really punchy. But I'm finding that the actual walls of the mill, especially because the sun is shining on it, do come over quite flat. And you might be better if it wasn't so sunny that day, but obviously you can't do too much about that. But I don't know whether it was other areas have been brightened up a little bit too much, but it just doesn't have the sort of initial punch maybe that I was expecting, although the background area and the steps have got some great detail. It's just a very flat wall, which is a shame. I do like, I guess I said, the people coming out and you got them against the background, so that worked well. Next.
Meerkat.
Yes. Despite the, I don't know as I've really seen a meerkat sitting down before. They're always standing up, aren't they? So it's quite nice to see them in a different mode. We've got some really good textures and details within the fur and the tail that is tucked underneath, sitting on it. It's almost like a tabby cat if you didn't have the face. Oh, and the feet are a little bit longer. But sort of good detail within it there. Lacking a tiny bit of detail where ears are, there's black areas to the sides there. And I can see that we're good sort of control of depth of field as well. Next.
Museo de Alicante.
Wow.
Number 1.
Number 1. I wonder how many there are. This is quite an interesting, it's a picture in a picture. So I'm thinking that the picture that's surrounded by black is the interior of the museum. And then you've put your own slant on this, that in turn is then surrounded by the big white area. But your four-sided shape in the middle, because it's not a rectangle, I'm pretty sure, unless it's an optical illusion, looks bigger on the left-hand edge looks bigger than the right-hand edge. So I think you've sort of got a little bit of tweaking and things going on here, and you've made what was a fairly mundane image into something that is your own. I'm not going to hold it back, but I do like the idea of where you're thinking and where you're coming from. Next.
Orkney silver band player.
Yes. I don't know whether the people who, the members who do black and white are same people who do the colour, but this one in particular has a great sense of humour attached to it. The fact that we can only just see one and a tad, just a little bit of an eye poking out over the top. The hair of the person playing this large instrument has got definition between him and the background, and the shine of the instrument has got some reflections in it, possibly of the man sitting there. And then between the two stands, we've got some of the pipe work of this instrument. So almost half of it is covered by the stands, but you're just teased with enough information of other parts. And so it's rather like the last image. I think you've made this one your own. Again, I'm not going to hold it back because I actually think the monochrome section is very strong. And whilst I'm liking this one, it's not one of my top 5. Next.
Pincushion cacti.
Yeah, do you know, somebody once said to me, where's my point of focus? and I'm a little bit, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. But then that cactus in the centre has got a little bit of a blemish to it. So I think that's my point of focus, and it is quite central. Always difficult to know where to finish, but you do appear to have swirls in each of them all the time. A little bit repetition, a bit of repetition going on, except for that hole of black sort of towards the upper edge and right. Next.
Poseidon arises.
The wind, the tide, and the right shape of the rocks is going to produce such a splash, and you can see where the water is coming in and risen, and at that moment you've used, I imagine, is a fairly fast shutter speed. It's almost divided into two, and looks a little bit like somebody with wings, that's gone to the sides. Yes, you have just got the hole at the top, the whole of that splash within the frame, and not cropped any of it off. And I do like the fact we can see where it was coming into that small gully area, and it's got nowhere else to go, so of course it's going to go up. And then to the right of that splash, we've got some very detailed rocks, and how we can see the geology of how that was formed. So it's quite an instructional image, as well as seeing the splash and your technique of getting that right. Next.
Power save.
Is it a bit like a power snooze, is it? Because he certainly looks asleep. He's got his eyes closed, looks like he's in another world. He's just, or she, has gently sort of just taking 10 minutes drifting off. So we've got good details within, very close up indeed, but we've got good details all the way around. It goes a little bit to the top left-hand corner, which I'm not surprised at. But very good detail with around the lips area and that nose. And I think it has worked that you're coming in quite close, because you've got no distracting backgrounds or anything there. And I like the fact that we've got blonde eyelashes. Well, there you go. Who would have guessed? Who would have known? Next.
Predators.
It's an interesting title. And so one hopes they weren't, in a sense, or maybe this was set up, I don't know. And it does sort of show today's life and what's happening, because the guy who's got the t-shirt, Who I Am, has got the mobile phone in his hand. The lady who's just a little bit in front of the four men has got the knees of her jeans that are torn, and I understand you buy them like that. So why is another question. And the hip level taking, I think, has really made the image. There's some good quality detail and definition, and I'm thinking Prince again here, as the whites are really bright and intense, and the darks, and she almost looks as though she's coming forward. It almost has a 3D effect. So if it does that on a PDI as a print, I think that would work even better. And so therefore I'm holding this one back.
Primate contemplation.
Contemplating their fingernails by the look of it, or maybe a grub or something that he's holding. Looks quite an old primate, doesn't it? But even so, we've got good texture, like we had with the power save picture. the textures of the skin. I don't think it's quite as good as that, but I am enjoying the texture of the fur in this instance. I like the angle of it as well, because the left arm of the primate comes around the right hand side of the image along the bottom, and then the rest of his arm takes up. So we've got this like circle, it's almost cradling, and the head sits on top. And so for composition, I think that has worked very well. Quite like the very dark background. So it certainly gets rid of any distractions. Might be a bit tricky to do, but yeah. Next.
Rag rug making.
Oh gosh, I do remember having rag rugs at my granny's house, and I imagine because she was quite a bit of a seamstress and sewer herself, that she would have made them. Are we in somewhere like the Black Country Museum or Beamish or somewhere like this, so that we are taken back in time? Maybe the glasses are not quite in keeping. There might have been a little bit different style in the 40s, but the baskets that are over on the right hand side, the wallpaper, and also the check tablecloth really are, I think, from that time, and they're sort of Hessian edges, so that you can pull your threads through quite easily, and makes you've got quite a large rug there. So yeah, it does come, it does bring back that time, that 1940s time, which I think is where we're going. It could be that she's wearing dungarees as well, which puts us into, I think, wartime wear for certainly land girls wore that, but you know, that type of era. So yeah, I can see that this is that is working. There's a little part of the door, there's quite a pale area above her head. I might have just darkened that down so there's not something growing out the top of her head. But yeah, it's a good memory and a good shot of the time. Next.
Rainbow Isle sets out to fish.
Wow. In the morning, it's quite often misty, isn't it? And I hope they know the weather forecast, because they don't want to be doing it in that weather all the time. But they've got to get out to their fishing grounds, and that might take a little while. So hopefully by the time they get there, the weather will be better and they'll be able to see what they're doing. Slightly off to one side, I think, has worked well. And I'm enjoying the reflection. That it's almost a thumbprint, you know, it's got those whirls and swirls at the bottom of it. Next.
Reflection.
I spent, when I had a look at the images beforehand, I spent a lot of time looking at this one, because it has great impact, and I'm sure it would make a great print. And you sort of, you know, that initially that what's in the bottom is probably the reflection of the top. And then I'm looking along where the line is to this line here, yeah, that line across there. I'm looking to see where it would come from, and has somebody flipped this and just put it on there, because I don't see a natural point of where it would, you know, it isn't completely half and half, you know, however it was done and whatever, it almost maybe is water, I don't know, but wherever it's been flipped or how it's done does not detract away from the fact that it is a very strong image. I think the circles of lines that make a complete circle definitely have helped with this image. And I'm on the print side, I'm pretty sure it would be quite a stunning print. So we'll hold that one back, please.
Remembering one.
Wow. These weathered faces is what I'm thinking here. So we've got really good detail. So maybe he wouldn't want so much detail to be seen, but he seems really content with having the photograph taken. like lots of people, and you've got one eye a little bit more closed than the other. I didn't realise that my daughter is definitely like this, and you do have to be careful with it. But that's part of his character, and good detail in the hair, and even the part of his jacket, the collar. I like that detail in the fabric. Now, for my liking, I would like you to come back a little bit more so that he's not quite as squashed up to the edge at the top and the right hand side, and just eased back a little bit and given us just a little bit more, not a lot, but just a little bit more space for him, or his portrait, to breathe in. Great smile. Next.
The cross of sacrifice.
Interesting angle that you've chosen for this. And if there was something at the bottom, there was other people or other artifacts getting in the way, by the angle that you've done, you've also made it very impressive and sort of domineering, but also it's quite a statement for the image. Very much to the right hand side. I might have liked it to have just a little bit to the more to the right hand side of it, or to have moved your cross or the position where you took it to the left a little bit, so it's not quite so much to the right. We've got quite a solid, the light is right, the sunlight is right overhead, so beneath the short cross of the longer pillar, there is that tiny little bit of shadow. Almost looks like a dropped shadow, but it isn't. It's because the sun is so high. And I don't know whether you put it there or whether it was just fortuitous, but the colour of the clouds or similar around behind it have that sort of misty look, and maybe a slower shutter speed. The cross isn't going to move, so you can manage that. And it's darkened at the top, a little bit darkened at the bottom. It does have that sense of empowerment coming in, because you've got so much darkness at the top, and there's a sort of feeling that goes with the cross. I'm not going to hold it back, but it is a sort of a well executed piece. Next.
The long shadow.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how a shadow can fill an otherwise empty space, and also at the same time make that picture quite different, interesting, and we can't even see the person's face. We can see that she has quite sensibly got a hat on in the strong sunlight, and she's walking and striding out. I like the fact that her right arm is out to one side, and there's that thin shadow area that just separates from the main body of the shadow there. And the shadow is at a diagonal as well. Now, whether you took it like this and then tilted it within Photoshop or whatever you use, I don't know. But I do think the diagonal of the shadow is quite an important element to the image. Next.
The manager will see you now.
But the manager may not see you that well, although he has got his glasses on, of course. I went to Bletchley Park a couple of times last year. Had liked to have got one in again this year, but we were unsuccessful because of the pandemic. The cage, the chicken wire for the head, is quite different. It's more like you'd find out in the garden for a bit of topiary, isn't it? Sort of set in. It does look to be like set at Bletchley. We've got the old 1930s telephone, and we've got the typewriter where if you go too fast, your keys get stuck together and you have to stop and start again. And so we've suddenly got all the gubbins around it, and then I do think the glasses tend to make it's a humorous image, and one that may well have been set up for you, but difficult to resist to take. Next.
The old paper mill.
Yeah. I'm sort of bearing in mind that it's prints, and I do feel that this one would come over well as a print. I mean, it comes over well as a PDI. I like the intensity of the black clouds and the little bit of light just coming through, but nothing overpowering. The texture and detail on the sides of the walls here, and we've got one wall that is upright, and that's the corner of where we are looking. I think the way the light catches the building, I'm led to look at the three arches between the fire escape and the black sort of possibly garage or add-on to the right. It really does draw me into that area. And I, as I say, I can see this as a print very well indeed. And also when it was raining, that element of shine that sort of lifts the image just a tiny bit from the ordinary, and also that there are within right up at the ceiling, the roof line rather, there's what could be a guttering by the looks, and that even dark has got some detail in it. So yes, I think this would be looking good as a print. And hold that one back, please.
Under the arches.
The angle, it really looks as though this is curved, doesn't it? It looks really straight on top, but because of the lie of the land on left and right being a little bit higher than that lie of the land in the middle, it really looks as though it could curve, you know, into like semi-circular shape. But I know because the top is straight that it can't do that. The sky is really dark. It's almost one of those images where it might have had an infrared filter or just a darkening a grey grad or something on the top when you took that image. I would say it's a little bit dark for my liking. But the but the cloudscape beyond it's certainly interesting. Next.
So the last one in the monoprint of the year is water, ice and rock.
Wow. So I think looking at ice is at the bottom. So cold day, very good of you to go out on a cold day. I've done it, but the older I get, the more careful I am about such weather. The texture is of that water spray as it comes down, be it cold or not, has got, it's almost like a veil, a lightweight fabric that is just being draped, you know, maybe like the train of a bride, and it's just draped down. And we've got a little bit of detail within the rocks. It almost looks like a little nose sticking out about halfway down from the left-hand side. I like the textures on the rocks on the background as well. Yeah, and that's all. I won't hold that one back, but that's the last one.
That's the last one. Okay, so we'll go. So there's five images held back, and if I hit that, we should get them all.
Okay. Yep.
Some adjustment there. Okay, brilliant. So let's just. Shall I run through them again, just as a?
Yes, do.
Go. Okay.
Okay, so our highly commended are Predators, of the flash. And just another 20,000 to go.
Okay.
So footsteps in the sand is third. And two images that I think would look great as prints. And I have tried, I know it's a print competition that I'm judging in a different way. I've tried to look at them as prints. Second is reflection.
Okay. And that leaves the old paper mill.
And first is the old paper mill, yeah.
First paper mill. Okay, brilliant. I'll just run through who they were. Predators was Derek Collis. Just trying to get the right ones in the right order. Just another 20,000 to go. Keith Rose. Footsteps in the Sand, Mark Stanbury. Reflection, Lorraine Green. And the old paper mill, Jill Beckett. So, yeah, lots of waving and shouting. I'm just going to, I'm going to allow Jill to unmute herself, and she's just going to say a few words, which will probably start with, "Woo! I'm excited."
Yay! Thank you so much. What can I say? It's fun to me to thank you, and what a way to start thanking you. You know, amazing. That was just incredible. I really didn't expect it. So start off by saying thank you, Marilyn, for agreeing to do this at all. But thank you particularly for doing this as you have done it tonight, because this is about as close as we can get to a normal meeting in a virtual environment. So it's fantastic. I thank you so much for doing it. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
I do like the fact, another thing I need to thank you for is the fact all the way through you said, I'm looking at this as a print. And it's so easy when you're looking at a PDI to forget that you're actually trying to judge a print. So thank you so much for doing that. I think you've done a really good job for that. Excellent all the way through. You obviously got a great attention to detail. You've picked out a lot of the importance of the titles. Often you find that judges just ignore the titles or just get them wrong. So the fact that you've actually included the titles as part of your critique is just absolutely fantastic. And what can I say about the mono? I mean, I didn't expect to win it, truthfully, but just wonderful. So everybody, if you can unmute yourselves or be unmuted, and a big round of applause for Marilyn for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, just before
Yeah, well
before
done.
I finish, I'd also like to say a thank you to Phil and Roger and Ruth for putting all this together. It's a lot of hard work, and you've done a magnificent job. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.